Hello to you all. Listen, an exciting video I'm going to do here because we are going to state at this point that if you are preparing for the summer exam of 2013 for A2P with OCR, that this topic of the spread of athleticism from the public schools is what we would call a hot topic. So this may well feature on your paper. It is hot. Okay, so we're looking at this as a real possibility if you're sitting that exam. Not guaranteeing it's going to be there for you, but there's at least a possibility, or the sort of rhythm of past papers questions seem to suggest it might come up, so be ready to answer. Nice simple video, let's get started. Now the primary kind of central feature of this content is that we're going to argue, and of course the picture represents this, that school boys by sort of 1870 and later in the 19th century were developing a notion of athleticism. Now you know from other topics that this athleticism concept incorporates moral integrity combined with physical endeavour, things like teamwork, loyalty, honour, bravery and leadership combined with fitness, health and competitiveness. We're also arguing that for the majority of the early part of the 19th century this kind of notion existed solely within the British public schools, but that it spread beyond these institutions later in the century. And the question we want to know is, how did it spread? What was the process, and how did these games and also approaches to games spread beyond the public schools? Well, let's have a look at the answer to that question. The first point we need to answer is that the boys went on to university, took their school games with them, and formed this notion of the melting pot in places like Oxford and Cambridge and other leading universities at the time. They merged and formed their school games into accepted and nationally recognised games, and we call this the melting pot influence. From that, we also argue that based on things such as the literacy and kind of business skills that they were learning in schools, they went to form national governing bodies and actually established things such as the Football Association, Rugby Football Union, and they began to administer the sports themselves. They also went back as teachers or coaches to their schools. Now we call these types of people, nice little term to try and incorporate into your exam, we call them the assistant masters. So they went back to their schools and they taught or coached not only the sports, but the manner in which they themselves had learnt those sports. Not only that, they also became teachers in other schools. Now, of course, in the case of the spread of games, if they go back to a different school, then of course they spread the original notion of their game from their original school into a different institution. They also became, a nice term, we can use this in lots of aspects of RAS studies as well, of course, they also became role models. So these ex-public school boys also became role models. And we describe one of the kind of ideas of the role model is that they developed, they achieved blues. So they achieved their representative honours. They also spread the games abroad. And we know, and it's one of the things we often name straight away, is that they became army officers and spread the games beyond these shores and into sort of imperial Britain at that time. They also became priests or clergymen, and they developed a notion of sport, things like Sunday school teams, for example, with their parishioners, which is really important. They also became leading, for example, factory owners, but we might call them industrialists. Now, of course, another part of our course, can't quite fit that in there, industrialists. Another part of our course, we look at the sort of notion of industrial patronage, the provision of things such as factory teams by wealthy industrialists as a way of maintaining motivation and increasing kind of morale and identity within a workforce. And these people also went into politics. They became local and national politicians and influenced things such as political policy, and actually helped with the provision of facilities, parks, stadia that help the spread of athleticism. So, reminders, these are our key kind of destinations for these boys. This is what they went on to do. Officers, priests, industrialists, politicians. They became role models. They taught in other schools. They went back to their own school as assistant masters too. They formed NGBs, and of course they merged and melted the games at university in the melting pot. But don't forget what athleticism was. It was the combination of moral integrity and physical endeavour, which was derived from experience of public school sport in the late 19th century. I hope this has been useful for you. As ever, we're always looking for your comments and feedback, and should you have any of that, if you'd like to like these videos on YouTube, or whether you'd like to comment below or indeed contact us directly, we would be delighted